Good evening, everybody. We'll now return to our general session. Ms. Pingarelli will be joining us here shortly. Ms. Hill, do you mind leading us in our opening exercises, the pledge, a moment of silence? Okay. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Okay, moving on to 5.1, address agenda, recommend changes, and consider approval of consent agenda. Does any board member have any changes or wish to pull any items from consent? Do we have any public comment on consent? No? Okay, no public comment. Ms. Hill, any items that you'd like to pull or?
No, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
And again, Representative Pingarelli will be joining us shortly. I don't have any items either. That said, I do need a motion to approve the agenda and to include the consent agenda as it sits.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes, 4 yeas and 1 not present. All right, moving on to section 6, recognition. 6.1, Ms. Airy? No items, thank you. 6.2, board comments. Ms. Hill?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay. Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
No, thank you.
All right. I do have one that is coupled with a couple of our sites. So last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple of our classes, our FTA classes, and just great dialogue at Sunrise and Centennial, and it's just really inspiring to meet these individuals who are putting themselves out there for the greater good of our youth, who will continue to change lives just like our teachers here currently do in PUSD. So it was just really exciting to see those students already understand the impact that, or really the ability to have an impact on our society, by growing and developing and educating our youth. So I want to thank those teachers, thank those students. I really enjoyed my time with, again, having those discussions. Moving on to superintendent comments. Dr. Reynolds?
Thank you very much, President Sandoval, Governing Board, Cabinet, and guests. I want to congratulate our Arts Education Department, led by Mr. Robert Panzer. We're excited to share that last week, Peoria Unified, in partnership with the City of Peoria, earned a Westmark Best of the West Award in the Quality of Life Enhancement in the Community Award. This award was given for the Peoria Community Arts Projects. If you recall, we talked about this last fall, or rather in the fall of 2019, and where designs from 4th and 5th grade students from Sunset Heights, Lake Pleasant, Estancia, and Zuni Hills were submitted to the City of Peoria to be displayed on the Loop 303 bridge in Peoria. Ultimately, artwork from 12 students were chosen for this renovation project. Likewise, a handful of Peoria Unified students, as well as our very own director, had artwork chosen to cover several utility boxes throughout Peoria. Both of these are incredible examples of collaboration highlighting arts education in the community. The Best of the West Awards is described as a signature event or even the Oscars of the West Valley. We could not be more thrilled to be recognized alongside our city partners for this exciting award. So congratulations to Mr. Panzer and the entire Arts Education Department. We recently received an update from the Arizona Education Foundation with a list of the top 5 finalists for the Arizona Teacher of the Year Award. While our very own Jennifer Cheeseman at Zuni Hills Elementary did not make the top 5 as a finalist, she did excel to the top 10 as a semifinalist, and we know this is no easy task. We are incredibly proud of her, and we are blessed to have her as a valued member of our Peoria Unified family. Sunrise Mountain High School received 5 nominations from the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences for the 2021 National Student Production Awards. These are projects from the 2020-21 school year, and nominees were selected from high school student entries across the country in 25 categories. Congratulations to Amy Nygaard and her students from last year, Ryan Kraska and Kalini Agun Sewell, for their incredible work. Congratulations also to the Ironwood girls badminton team. Diana Ramirez is this year's badminton singles state runner-up, and for the first time ever, Alexandria Hogan and Juliana Traylor Rowan are this year's badminton doubles state championships. And I was just told that Ironwood is playing tonight as a team for the team state championship. So we wish them the very best of luck. We're very happy for them. And also we wanted to say a quick congrats to our Sunrise Mountain badminton team, who also secured a spot on the podium and earned a medal for 4th place. So that concludes my comments for this evening. Lots of good stuff going on.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Yeah, a lot of great achievements happened in Peoria Unified. Thank you for that. All right, moving on to Section 7, public comment. As always, we'll spend 30 minutes on public comment, 3 minutes per individual. Just a little housekeeping. The board president shall keep control of the meeting and require the speakers and the audience to refrain from abusive or profane remarks, disruptive outbursts, applause, protests, or other conduct which disrupts or interferes with the orderly conduct of the business of the meeting. Personal attacks on board members, staff, or members of the public are not allowed. It is inappropriate to utilize a public hearing, the public comment segment, or any other agenda items for the purpose of making political speeches. Engaging in such conduct and failing to cease such conduct upon request of the presiding officer will be grounds for ending a speaker's time at the podium or for the removal of any disruptive person from the meeting room at the direction of the board president. With that said, welcome everybody to the meeting this evening. We're looking forward to hearing your voices. First public comment comes from Miss Michelle Dillard.
Hi, my name is Michelle Dillard. I'm the president of Purple for Parents. I am here tonight to speak about Peoria Unified School District's relationship with the Arizona School Board Association. ASBA is an affiliate of the National School Board Association. As I'm sure you've heard, NASBA delivered a letter conflating concerned parents that attend school board meetings with domestic terrorists to the Biden administration. Within days, the Attorney General released a memo detailing his intent to convene a joint task force involving the DOJ, the FBI, and the NSA to investigate parents. The release of that memo containing that threat by our federal government is a violation of the First Amendment of the Constitution based on the chilling effect doctrine. This disgusting attack against parents led 22 member state associations to immediately distance themselves from NASBA. The Arizona School Board Association was not one of them. The libelous accusations using words such as violence, threats, harassment, and domestic terrorism are not only inflammatory, but in the context used, have legal definitions and consequences. However, in speaking with local law enforcement here, I've heard of no cases of such crimes. ASBA has been misleading you and giving you poor counsel, as evidenced by their constant stream of emails to influence you to exploit the COVID mitigation strategies to silence parents and subvert open meeting laws, and tips to fight against parent concerns.
ASBA has clearly defined themselves as enemies of parents. I am calling on PUSD to sever your relationship with ASBA and to immediately cease funding the organization that is actively targeting the parents in your community. As a school district in Arizona, you are statutorily required to encourage parental involvement. That is obviously not the intent of the Arizona School Board Association, and we don't want one more dime of our money to go to that association from this district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dillard. Next public comment comes from Ms. Christina Rogers.
Hello again. I just wanted to point out the numbers one more time, just to kind of reiterate why our masks are being off our children are important. So Peoria again this time was 102 cases, and we had 169. So obviously the kids being around each other, it's working. Deer Valley, they went down, they were 120, they went down to 123. Again, not a mask school. Dysart, not a mask school, and does not quarantine. Went from 97 to 72. I'm here to plead with you to please stop quarantining our kids. My son has been damaged horribly by this, as well as many other. So I am begging you guys to stop damaging them. The solution cannot be worse than the problem. And right now, COVID is not the problem, but the loss of education for our children and the quarantining and the mental strain that is happening to our children need to stop. I am begging and pleading with you guys to keep the masks off and please stop quarantining our children. Put our children first. Don't let the money that you guys are receiving stop the education of our children or the mental health of our children, because that matters. So please, please stop the quarantining of our children.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers. Next public comment comes from Mr. Roger O'Day.
Howdy. Sorry I haven't been here for a few meetings. I had COVID. I'm going to read, President Sandoval, you weren't here when I read this before, and it needs to be read again. The Supreme Court, in an opinion written by Justice William Brennan, reviewed the matter against the background of profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and that it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. That's basically what I said is exactly what I said. Justice Brennan was not a conservative justice. So this is his opinion on that, the case of New York Times versus Sullivan, 1964. The next one that I want to read is federal law. This is considered a civil rights violation. Education discrimination on the basis of age, disability, gender, national origin, race, or religion. And I brought that up because I've heard from this board that diversity is being taught in these schools. It's not the judgment or the position of the school to teach social abilities. And all you're doing is telling this kind of kid that he can't associate with that kind of kid, and that kind of kid that he's oppressed this kind of kid. It's backwards to what I assume your intention is. So, and this comes right out and says it. You're discriminating against one side or the other. It doesn't matter. You're giving positive, well, they're actually negative because you're telling them that he's been oppressed. And then this one, you're saying you're the oppressor. And so what that does is divides the kids up. They're not supposed to associate with each other because the schools have told them it's a bad thing. I don't remember the other one. Anyway, I brought this up before too. Masking does nothing because you're not wearing a approved respirator. Just a regular mask, like I said before. You read these boxes on these masks that are here. It says not for medical use. Protecting against a virus is a medical use. None of these masks cover for that. The reason people don't get blood absorption, oxygen absorption. Oh,
Ms. Rode, thank you very much, sir. No, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Next public comment comes from Ms. Kara Dowdy. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Daudi, thank you.
Perfect.
And thank you, school board members. I appreciate your time and everybody here. So I wasn't able to be at the last meeting, but I watched it online, and there were some things that were mentioned, and when they were mentioned, they said we, and I guess maybe there's a group of people that believe that. I'm not one of them. I know a lot of other parents that are not representative of that group as well. One of them is the masks. Masks do work. If I were to sneeze right now, I think you'd be pretty freaking happy that I have a mask on. If I were to cough right now, you'd be very glad that I was wearing a mask, because it's not just about COVID either, by the way. This is used, it's been medically proven many times before. We have to wear them in the hospitals when our family members have any kind of immune compromised system. They work. Whatever. I just want to be clear that it is not representative of, I don't even think the majority when people say that they don't like the masks idea at school. And by the way, I think it would probably help prevent some of the quarantine that's been going on too. Another thing I wanted to talk about was, well, I guess I keep thinking about Sesame Street on public broadcasting, and I keep thinking about how my kid right now goes to a public school, a really great public school in our community, part of the POSD schools, and just thinking about something like Sesame Street and the diversity and the way they share their emotions, and they share them from different points of view, and they share stories. And I think, my God, that's exactly what public schools are about, what public information is about, and what our schools need to be about. And I'm really terrified to hear other parents fight against education for kids, fight against diversity in the schools, fight against understanding where a Black person comes from or any person of color, fighting against anything that has to say, LGBTQ, we embrace you, you are okay, you can come to us and talk to us. I don't even understand the mindset of somebody who is terrified of this kind of learning. Social and emotional learning. Teaching our kids, it's okay to feel the way you do. Here are some ways that we can feel better about our day, even though it was crap. You know, my kid has autism. It's high-functioning autism. You want to talk about suicide? It is the highest suicide rate in the country. Kids with high-functioning autism, higher suicide rate than anybody else. I want him to have that social and emotional learning. I want him to know where other kids are coming from. I want him to know the truth about things, the truth about history. And as he gets older, more truth. Stop banning information. Stop asking for information to be banned, people, and let's ask to keep education going. This is public education. If you have some kind of weird Christian point of view or some kind of racist point of view, then start your own.
Thank you. Next public comment comes from Mr. Eric Hayes.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? My name is Eric Hayes. I'm 18 years old, and I'm a former student of Peoria Unified School District. It was brought to my attention today that the curriculum by the name of SEL, Social Emotional Learning, is now being taught in the school district. When the school sends home a slip saying that if parents don't want kids enrolled in the program, it must be signed and returned as if they are already enrolled in this program, I believe that this is a red flag, and I believe it's not appropriate at all. It raises questions, lots of concerns as well. When looking at the exact program that is being used It's called Sanford Harmony, and they align themselves with CASEL. According to measuring.casel.org, the purpose or definition of social and emotional learning has the potential to mitigate interrelated legacies of racial, class, and oppression in the U.S. and globally. Now, the definition of critical race theory, according to learningforjustice.org, is critical race theory is a school of thought that explores and critiques American history, society, and institutions of power, including government and legal systems, from race-based perspectives. Now, these sound oddly related, and this raises concern, especially because we are told that critical race theory is not taught in Peoria Unified School District. However, the document that is aligned with Sanford Harmony, the term equity is used. Racism is defined in the dictionary as the belief that different race possesses distinct characteristics, abilities, and qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. Now, looking through measuring.casel.org, the curriculum seems to be following the teachings of a self-proclaimed Marxist, Ibram X. Kennedy, who once said, "Whiteness is an entitlement program," which I believe is a absolutely disgusting racist comment. When you are using a term of any skin color and you're making a general statement about it, I believe that that's racist, just for the record. So I am requesting that a curriculum is available to taxpayers. I'm not 100% sure. I looked pretty much all day today and couldn't find an exact curriculum. But I'm really hoping that we are not teaching Marxism in our school system, and especially as somebody who's coming up as the next generation of voters, I really hope that, like I said, Marxism is not in the school system, and I believe it's really sad. So I want to end out when saying that when you focus on race and you put race first, you are in fact a racist. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Next public comment comes from Ms. Heather Rooks.
Hello, board members, superintendent, and guests. I wanted to first thank you for still giving choices to parents on masks remaining optional. I also wanted to say thank you for the 3 board members voting against the ASBA policy at the previous board meeting. We do appreciate those 2 things. I wanted to speak on something that happened last Friday at my kid's school. I received an email and a missed phone call in the afternoon from my kid's assistant principal about an anti-bullying assembly. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, okay, that's great, you know, teaching the kids to be kind to one another. Picked up my son from school, and he told me that they watched some video during the assembly. And he said, "Mom, it was a video about racism," and he said there was a kid on the video that said the N-word. I had no idea what my kid watched. No clue. And the only reason I received an email from the assistant principal is because at the beginning of the year, I filled out opt-out forms for each of my children against mental health screening, without my consent, against social emotional learning, equity, diversity, all those words that keep appearing everywhere. And I had it notarized, and I turned it in to the teacher, the principal, and the district. So that's the only reason why I got notified. Nobody else got notified for the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students at Estancia Elementary. This video, I requested that Friday on the phone with the assistant principal. She claimed to not know what it was, where she got it from. She couldn't remember. So I said, okay, I'll email you and I'll ask for it through email. And then on Monday, I wanted to give time. On Monday, I called in and still was denied access to the video or the name of the video, whatever my kid watched. I had no clue. That whole Monday was back and forth of emails and phone calls between the assistant principal, the principal, of just trying to find out what my kid watched and why other parents were not notified. That video is so bad, it couldn't even be played on the radio show that was featured on James C. Harris because he would be in trouble. The video had words as slut, the N-word, other just horrific, inappropriate words, and I did not know about it until after. I will be filing a complaint with the State Board of Education against this. And I think it's wrong that we don't include parents in communication on these type of issues. I understand anti-bullying. That's not what this is about. This is about a video that was shown to our kids without our permission and without our knowledge. It's unacceptable. And I want to say thank you to my son's teacher for trying to tell the assistant principal not for my son to watch this video. I do want to thank her.
Appreciate you. Next public comment comes from Ms. Jennifer Coleman.
Members of the board, Superintendent Reynolds, thank you for giving me this moment. I was a foster parent for 4 years, and in that time, my husband and I had 12 children come through our home. And one of the things that stood out to me during child-family team meetings was the constant question of what support do you have in your community to help you through the next tough time? I want to thank you for the SEL programs on campuses in Peoria Unified. They make a difference. Thank you for allowing the grants for social workers to be on campus. Our family personally had something come up, and I was able to reach out to the social worker to say, hey, can you check in on my kids? And it made a difference. It made them feel safe at school. They knew they were going to be able to take a breath, and they're doing better. So thank you for that. And thank you for the anti-bullying training. We're a transracial family. Starting in 2nd grade, my child was kicked and punched on the playground and told she was ugly because of the color of her skin. It has been a continual issue. Kids hear the language that was previously mentioned in jokes, in jest, and they don't necessarily understand the gravity of what those words mean. But for Black and brown children, people of color, their families pass down that trauma because of the fact that they know they have to protect themselves differently. And so their kids have a different family history than others. And so for them, those words hold much more significance. Those words are violent and threatening, and they rob them of their security. And so I just want to say thank you for providing it. I want to thank our assistant principal at our school for notifying the families. I think this is important. I think it's something that we should face. It's part of our history. It happened. And just like we don't ignore the circumstances of World War II, both in Europe and through the portion that America was part of, we shouldn't ignore our own history when it comes to the caste system that did exist and now exists through just the norms of systems. If we don't, we won't get past what we're doing. My kids deserve to learn about the history that impacted them. And as a mother that didn't know a lot of their history until the last several years, I have grown and I have learned to do better. And I think we all need to as a community so that we can support one another. My kids deserve to learn in a safe environment. And I hope that my white son will also learn to, from our history, so that he doesn't repeat it and those around him won't repeat it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coleman. Thank you for your time. Next public comment comes from Ms. Susan Black.
First of all, I want to ditto Michelle. Very good. I totally agree with her on that. I had a whole list of what I wanted to say, but I think everyone has done a marvelous job. One thing I do want to address, I am very against critical race theory. I'm very against SEL being taught in the school. The school should be focusing on reading, writing, arithmetic, and history, not racism. There is a difference. Definitely a difference. And the social emotional learning should be done at home or with a professional counselor. It should not be addressed in the school. The school should be teaching curriculum, reading, writing, arithmetic. Get back to the basics. I understand that there are a lot of children and parents that are not parenting like they should, but it still should be the responsibility in the home, not with the schools. That is my main issue. I do want to address Heather Rooks. I think that is appalling that a school would not give her an opportunity to opt out and give her the opportunity to review the video. I was 8 years on another school board, and that was totally unacceptable to allow something like that. So I think we need to get back to what should be taught in schools. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Thank you for your time. Next public comment comes from Ms. Carol Raber.
Hi, my name is Carol Raber, and up until the end of last school year, I had a daughter in Centennial High School. I was one of those parents who wasn't paying attention until COVID came along and the masking and the quarantines, and thanks to some of these wonderful mothers here, I started paying attention and started attending meetings. Some of the conversations were about critical race theory and social emotional learning, and we were talking about having dialogues where we actually spoke about our concerns and had conversations where we weren't 3 minutes on each side talking at each other. So at the end of the last school year, I decided I was going to make a statement. I pulled my daughter from Centennial, having no idea what I was going to do with her. To be perfectly honest, I was hoping that the school board would pull their heads out of their rear ends and have those conversations. I think we were talking about having open forums or something of that effect. So the end of the school year the end of the summer came around, and I still hadn't found a place for my daughter. I was starting to panic. I spoke to some of these parents here and was informed that Jefferson Prep was not requiring masks, was not requiring quarantines, and they were not pushing the vaccine. So I had a tour and immediately enrolled my daughter. I could not be happier. They are not requiring masks. They are not quarantining. Unless you have a direct family member that has got COVID, you will not be quarantined. They have had no major outbreaks. They've had a couple isolated cases. None of the children have been seriously ill. The principal knows my daughter by name, and when we had a family issue come up, I went straight to that principal who was able to tell me the name of a teacher who has a very good rapport with my daughter, who had only been at that school for a month and a half by that time, who sat her down, and they are nurturing her and helping her deal with things. I could not be happier with this school, and if there is any other parent here who would like to talk to me about Jefferson Prep or Adams Traditional School, I will be happy to tell it. And I'm really still hoping that this school district can get to the point where I can trust you again, so I can put my daughter back in a school with her friends and not have to drive her 20 minutes, which I am very happily doing, because that school is the only one I know that is doing what is right for the children. Thank you, and one more thing. Let's go, Brandon.
Thank you, Ms. Raber. Next public comment comes from Ms. Melissa Ewing.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak. First of all, I want to make a request. You set out rules in the very beginning of behavior. People are not supposed to be applauding. They're not supposed to be clapping. That should be something that each time that happens, the board should be doing that. So that's just, it seems to be a little bit more out of hand this meeting than before. Anyway, I read the article that was written that when they interviewed Mrs. Rooks about what happened out at Estancia. I'm a For those of you who don't know, I live out of Estancia. I've lived out there for 15 years. My kids, my daughter is now a senior at Liberty, and my son's a sophomore. So we've seen lots of different age groups of kids come through Estancia and so forth. I know that the assembly happened, and I was very kind of shocked at a lot of the parents' question was, you know, how could they show this video to my kids? Where my question was, how bad have the behaviors gotten that they felt the need that they had to address 4 grade levels in a group setting? And I understand they could have communicated out to the parents ahead of time and probably should have. But I know I see in Vistancia on the Facebook pages, I see a lot of parents complaining about language and all of that outside of the school. So I know it's happening. But it led me to the question of how much other increase in violence, bullying, aggression is happening across all of the PUSD schools, because I see articles written that you have road rage that's increasing. So there is violence that's increasing across a lot of different formats. And I think a lot of it is because a lot of trauma has happened over these last 2 years. And that leads people to feeling frustrated, burnout. Parents are burnout, kids are burnout, teachers are burnout, administrators are burnout, a lot of burnout, and that means you don't have best behavior. So my request is, do they track that? And what are the programs that PUSD has in place to help schools address? How are we supporting that school? How are we supporting those kids? How are we supporting the teachers to help these kids to improve behavior that's not just punitive? Because it does need to be a supportive approach. And are we getting together with the parents and bringing them in a town hall setting or so forth? But so my request is that PUSD have some sort of support to schools who have that increase in behavior happening.
Thank you, Ms. Ewing. We have one more final public comment, and it comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Thank you, President Sandoval, Superintendent Reynolds, members of the board, auxiliary staff, guests. Tonight I want to talk about something another parent brought up at a previous meeting, bullying in Peoria Unified School District. Yeah, it happens. My son is a survivor of bullying in this district. So I know it's hard, and I get it's an imperfect world. I actually applaud the district for what it's done and will continue to do to combat bullying, because I've seen the steps that you guys have taken in the past. And I wanted to maybe offer a suggestion. My son was able to take part in an assembly put on at his school by a nonprofit group called Stand for the Silent. For those that don't know, they were founded by a student group in Oklahoma after they heard of the story of 2 parents whose child committed suicide because he was bullied. These parents travel around the world and talk to thousands of people in schools, community centers, churches, or different organizations. And I can tell you from my own experience, anyone that attends one of these sessions will leave the session affected. 6 years later, I still wear the bracelet that they gave me that day so that I remember the lessons that I learned that day. And it's funny, I didn't realize until preparing my comments for tonight that 15 years after I left Peoria Unified School District, it's still teaching me lessons. I'll email the board more information about that program, because I think it's something any school can use. This brings me back to social emotional learning. I'll say it again. Kids, we learn a lot more than just reading, writing, and arithmetic in school. Also, did science and history get left out of this conversation all the time? Those are pretty important too, but my point is not everything you learn on campus comes within the classroom. I remember the life lessons that I learned just as much, if not more so, than what I remember from Mr. Griffin's AP history class. We learned lessons in honesty, humility, empathy, and so many qualities that determine what type of people we end up becoming. So I encourage the district to continue to pursue SEL programs because I've personally seen how they've made a benefit and they will continue to make a benefit in every student's life every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. And that concludes our call to public. Once again, thank you, everybody, for your voices. They are very important for the board to understand and listen to, and helps us just be smarter as we make all those decisions on behalf of the district. So thank you for that. That said, we are moving on to Section 10. Our action items. And the first line item that we have in this category is 10.1, a ratification of 2022-2023 school year calendar with modified Wednesdays. Ms. Ari, welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds, and guests that have joined us here and virtually this evening. I come before you this evening to present the calendar for the 2022-2023 school year that you previously approved, November 11th of 2020. Policy ICA states that you will bring back the subsequent school year's calendar for ratification prior to November 15th of each school year. So I stand before you with a draft calendar with your ratification this evening, which we are recommending. We will begin all of our planning and work for the next school year.
Perfect. I don't believe we have any public comment tied to this, do we, Cor? All right. Very good. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
No comments.
All right. Dr. Sorensen?
I'm not on the calendar committee, but I would like to advocate. I think we should move some things around for a fall break. I think that's beneficial at the quarter.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Underhill, questions, comments?
No, I think it looks good, but I concur that the fall break is a nice benefit. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Representative Pingerelli?
No comments.
All right, thank you. I don't either. Ms. Underhill, or I'm sorry, Ms. Ari, thank you. But I do need a motion to approve 10.1.
I move to approve 10.1, the ratification of the 2022-2023 school year calendar with modified Wednesdays.
I'll second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Hill and a second by Ms. Underhill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Ms. Ari. All right, moving on to 10.2. Looks like we have a few public comments tied to this line item. As usual, we'll listen, we'll hear from the district, and then we'll hear public comment, and then we'll get into board members' questions and comments at that point. So that said, Dr. Davidson, welcome, sir.
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board, cabinet, and guests. Tonight, it's a great honor to come before you with this request. Certainly, as we move forward with this agenda item, just wanted to highlight that for the community as well as for our board, we are referencing policy FF, which is naming facilities. An important piece from that policy that I'd like to read tonight is the governing board will consider approval of a memorial in honor of persons who have special significance to the students, the school district, or the community. And tonight, on behalf of Cactus High School, we have our principal, Christy Hammer, to consider naming our Cactus Field on behalf of a longtime team member, Mr. Paul Williams. So I'll have Ms. Hammer speak, and then certainly we'll go from there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hammer, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, governing board members, and Dr. Reynolds. I want to bring to you this evening the proposal to name our track after Paul Williams. Some of you have known him and have worked with him. Dr. Bill Sorensen, you had that opportunity, I know, as well. Paul Williams is a legacy at Cactus. If you've had any opportunity to be around the Peoria district for any amount of time, he was a teacher at Cactus for 33 years, and you guys can see some of his accolades up here. He won 5 state track championships, 6 region track championships. He was named State Coach of the Year 3 times, named Coach of the Great Southwest twice, and in 2013 was inducted into the Arizona State Coaches Hall of Fame. But I think beyond his accolades is the person that he was. And so we grabbed a few quotes from people just talking about who he is as a person because he impacted people's lives. And I think sometimes we can look at accolades and be excited about those, but really it's the legacy that you leave in people's lives that mean the most. And so some of these quotes up here I absolutely loved. One of them said, Paul simply finds the good in everybody. He's able to look past rough exteriors and get to their hearts, and more often than not, finds that they are good at the core. I learned from Paul not to judge anyone based on what is seen. He never vocalized that lesson, but I learned it by how he lived. For 25 years, when English 4 classes read Beowulf, they consistently cast Paul as the good and wise ruler, King Hrothgar, who serves as a father figure to Beowulf. I think that means so much when you talk about the impact that he had. I had the opportunity to work with Paul as a teacher, and I actually coached track with him for a few years when I taught at Cactus High School many years ago. And he loved people. He loved kids, and he did. He found the good in everybody. One of the things that impressed me with Paul was his uncanny ability to push kids to find their own greatness in themselves and to believe in themselves. And it's not that we had so many great athletes that we won all these state track championships. It's that he pushed kids to really believe in their ability and find things in themselves they didn't know they had. So what we would like to do is honor Paul. He died this past year. We had over 450 people at his memorial at Cactus High School, and over 100 watched it online, live stream. Due to COVID, they couldn't make it there. And so, what an honor to have so many people come and celebrate a man who just impacted their lives, and they were staff and students and community members. So we would like to do is next Friday is our homecoming, and we would like to honor his memory and name our track after him at that time. We are going to put a banner, obviously a windscreen across the stands of our visiting side, so it takes that whole side so you can see that the track is named after him. When our track gets resealed, we want to put Paul Williams' name in the 9th lane, because that's the lane that's not used, but it'll be there. For the football game, we're going to have our athletes wearing his initials on their helmets, and then we're going to have his name painted on the field as well. We are also starting a Paul Williams Scholarship for 1 female and 1 male track athlete each year, and that is done by the community who are overseeing Paul, and some of them are here to speak tonight. So what have we done to get ready for this initiation for him is we've collected signatures in supporting the naming of our track after him. This was actually a push by our community who loved Paul. And then our site council also voted on it. Our student council also approved it. So I just want to bring that forth this evening. And we have some people who would like to speak to that as well. Gentlemen? Is there anything you need?
Actually, I think we have 3 public comment. No worries. Thank you for that, by the way. And so our first public comment tied to this line item comes from, looks like Mr. Steve. Is it Mash? Mash?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Steve Mash. I taught in this district for 42 years. I want to thank you people because 6 months ago, you approved a artist plaque to be put on the building where I worked for 30 years, and I want to publicly thank you. That was very, very moving for me. But I came to talk about Paul because I've been in the district so long, I know a lot of the people that you've already honored, Dr. Kellis and Ray Mitakawa and Mr. Huber, Rob DeSealhorse. They were all people that I knew really, really well. And a lot of people don't know this, but Dr. Kellis thought he was a shade tree mechanic. It was hilarious when he tried to bring his truck in and get it fixed. But I'll tell that story some other time. But Paul belongs with those men and women. There are so many people that make this district great. I always brag about this district. I stayed in it for a long, long time. Really didn't want to go, but I was getting tired. but it's a great, great district with great, great people. And I cannot express enough to you how great Paul was. And, you know, I knew him from day one. We were roommates for 4 years before I got married. We raced together. We coached football together. We did a whole bunch of things. And he was one of the nicest men. Of all the men to pass away, he shouldn't have been the one. And I hope that you'll see it in your hearts to go along with this. It's a great thing for a great man. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mash. Next public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Lee Sanderson.
Good evening, board, Mr. President, members, old friends. I've got a person sitting over here that babysat my kids when, and it's good to see Bill. I worked with Bill and everything. And I'm here on behalf of Paul Williams, and this might be just a little bit difficult for me because we were such close friends, all of us, Donnie and Steve. We were very close to the very end. And I would just like to mention a couple of things, because a lot of things that Christy mentioned, I agree with 100%. But I want to go back to 1978 in the fall when school opened. I'm going to date myself a little bit. I had no clue who Paul Williams was. None. All I knew was that I was going to be in the Cactus High School PE department, and Jim Williams was going to be the head of the department, and Paul Williams was going to be an instructor, and I was going to be an instructor. So it was the first day of school pretty much was the day that I met Paul. At that point in time, I can reflect back now and tell you that that was the beginning of a beautiful legacy that he carried out. It didn't take long for me to figure out how much he loved kids, how much he loved coaching, and how much he embodied the character and spirit and values of not just being a good coach, but a great coach. And so obviously I feel that he's very deserving of this award, and I just feel very strongly that you will see that it's going to be very appropriate to do so. One of the things that I remember about Paul, and then I'm going to stop because I'll probably start crying. I can remember in those early days, Paul going out in the PE department and talking to the teachers, and then going out and talking to the kids. And he would walk up to a girl and say, "I can make you a high jumper." Or he would see a boy and he'd say, I can make you a long jumper. If you'll just come with me and give me time, I'll make you a track athlete. Well, you saw the records and you know what they are. So he just embodied everything that makes a good and hearty, great coach. And I hope you'll see fit to name the track after him. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sanderson. Next public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Don Shaver.
My name's Don Shaver, and I first met Paul in 1979 when I was hired at Cactus High School. I taught in the district 27 years at Cactus, then Centennial, and there is not anybody that I've ever met in my entire coaching or teaching career that meant more to kids, and kids meant more to him than Paul Williams did. All of the accomplishments that he made in track and in football, he was a part of 2 state championship teams in football at Cactus. All of those things are not close to what he was as a person. And as Christy mentioned, over 400 in attendance at his memorial service, another 50 to 100 watching it live streamed. All of the different things on the alumni site to support this. I personally received over 40 emails and text messages from a variety of people saying that they think this absolutely should be done, that it is an honor that he deserves for not only his accomplishments as a track person, but as a person, what he meant to kids and kids' parents and everybody. So I would very much like to support the naming of the track after Paul Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time. All right, we do not have any more public comment tied to this line item. So board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
What a wonderful way to commemorate a man who's done so much, not only for the school and the students, but the community. Just speaking personally, my daughter has had many coaches for soccer and various other sports, and a good coach is really hard to find. You'd be shocked, you know? So, boy, if you've got one that really not only knows about a particular sport, but deeply cares for kids and actually invests in them, you got yourself a winner, you know? So as far as I'm concerned, all the accolades he got, you know, the biggest accolade he really got, I think, was his connection to those kids and making them feel special and elevating them to the next level through their performance on the track and also internally. So I'm very much on board with, you know, giving him this honor in his memory. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
Yeah, just thank you to Christy, you know, Steve, Donnie, and Lee for speaking about Paul. You know, I coached side by side with Paul, and just the word that comes to me is kind. I mean, kind to every single human being that he came into contact with. He's going to add value to your life, and I don't care who you are. And I had a significant conflict and wasn't able to be at his service, but I'm sure the amount of love in that auditorium was palpable. And this is an absolute no-brainer. Generally, I remember talking to Paul and Larry Feckenheimer coaching, not understanding our FF policy on why people have to pass before we name things after them. That's a different discussion. This absolutely has to be done. That man is full of love, and I can tell you he has forever touched my life. So I'm an absolute yes.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
Yes, well, I did not have the pleasure of knowing him, but I certainly appreciate all the effort that you all have, you know, gone to make this happen. And I'm excited because when you leave that kind of a legacy with a person like that, it also inspires the kids moving forward. So it's exciting to see this happen, and obviously fully on board, but it's wonderful that he can live on that way and hopefully inspire some of our young people to be like him and to be that coach for somebody else. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Representative Pingarelli?
Well, I just want to say that I wish I had have known him. I did not, so I'm fully supportive. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you, Representative Pingarelli. Yeah, I would agree with everything that's already been said. I mean, I'm a product of public schools, and you know, I look back at my teachers and coaches who still, you know, shape, you know, who I am today just based on those lifelong lessons learned. Something that Ms. Underhill stated, I can't think of a better way to model human kindness and someone who's had true leadership and courage to stand in another's shoes, to get to know them, and to bring out, you know, all of those, their best qualities, right? And put them in a position to be successful, you know, as they continue their educational experience here in PUSD. So I'm in 100% in support of this, and I do appreciate everybody who came out and spoke on his behalf. Truly a testament to the type of person he was, and the impact that he'll continue to make on many lives as we move forward. So thank you for that. That said, if no further questions or comments, I do need a motion to approve 10.2, which is the naming of the Cactus High School track field in memory of Paul Williams.
I will move to approve 10.2, the naming of Cactus High School track field in memory of Paul Williams.
I'll second.
All right. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Hill, And a second by Representative Pingarelli. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members. Dr. Davidson, Ms. Hammer, thank you. Okay, moving on to 10.3, curriculum and instruction, new course proposals. We have Ms. Hobbs.
Well, good evening, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Reynolds, Cabinet, and guests. Tonight we bring before you 3 new special education courses for your approval. The 3 courses are Fundamentals of Literature and Composition, Algebraic Problem Solving, and Music Experience. New courses are connected to our strategic plan as they fall into the perspective of student success. It is our desire to have continuous improvement, ensuring success of all students. Where we see a need to provide additional course options or coursework that will better support our students, we do so by bringing these courses to the Governing Board for your approval. Our first course is Algebraic Problem Solving. The special education course is modified but still aligned to our Algebra 2 curriculum. It will cover some of the same standards, including algebraic thinking and functions, probability, numbers, as well as quantities and statistics. And students who are enrolled in this course will typically be from our specialized programs. Unique learning systems will be the resource that will be used for teaching this algebraic problem-solving course, and it will be taught by a special education teacher. This course is intended for students who will qualify to take an alternative state assessment. Our next course is Fundamentals of Composition and Literature. This will also be taught by a special education teacher, and students will be typically from our specialized programs who qualify to take alternative state assessments instead of the AZM2 or next year's AASA. Unique learning systems will also be the resource used in this course. Within Fundamentals of Composition and Literature, multisensory imagery and supportive student writing will be included to help our students with their composition skills. This course provides these students with their 4th English credit. And finally, we bring before you this evening a request for your approval of a music experience course. This music class will also be taught by a special education teacher, and students will typically be from our specialized programs. This course will allow students more hands-on opportunities and will focus on rhythm and how music can draw out emotions. This evening, I am joined by the Director of Special Education, Mrs. Lori Garcia, and at this time, we will pause for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Hobbs, and welcome, Ms. Garcia. We do not have any public comment tied to this line item, so board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
Yes, actually, I was wondering if you might be able to help me out here as far as, I understand you wanting to add these classes. Were these classes not in existence before this? Were you using a different curriculum, or what were you doing prior to these classes?
It is really just a Governing Board, President Sandoval, sorry, Governing Board member, Ms. Hill and Dr. Reynolds. It is really a continuum that we've been building and improving as we go along. The resource stays the same. It is the unique learning system that we continue to use. It's just a stronger alignment to what we already have, and we're continuously looking at how do we improve that instruction.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that. And I'm happy to see about the music experience. Have there been thoughts about utilizing art as well? Are you already utilizing that, especially for children that have special needs. I have a music and art background, so I think those specifically sometimes can, bridge the gap with kids that are special needs, that they might be able to find a connection with music or an outlet with art and that sort of thing. So I was wondering is there a utilization for art that they are currently using, or have you thought about it?
We do use art, and again, it's always a continuous improvement. So this is Music Experience 1, hoping that we continue in years to come with Music Experience 2 and continue with art also.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
I just would like to say that I appreciate the focus on the electives. I know we spend a lot of time making sure we cover standards in our core classes, and we spend a lot of attention on that, but I appreciate the expansion of experiences for the students in our Able and Arise program, so thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Sorensen. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I would say the same thing, that it's nice to see the challenging course in math as well. But it is really good to see those elective pieces, especially in ELA and literatures, because that expression, I think, is obviously critical to so many kids. So appreciate you guys putting forth the effort to continue to offer new opportunities. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Representative Picarelli?
Well, this is one area that I'm starting to learn a great deal about. I'm on an interim committee in the Senate looking at alternative state assessments. So I am fully on board with this, and I'd like to probably pick your brain, Ms. Garcia, in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Pingarelli. Yeah, I would concur. One of the things that Dr. Sorensen brought up, and I believe Ms. Underhill actually reiterated, is one, I mean, Ms. Garcia, you talked about continuous improvement and always learning, right? And bringing forth ideas and thoughts to ensure that all of our students are put in a position to be successful, right? So, as we talk about, equity in every student every day, it includes our students with disabilities. So I do appreciate your intentionality on ensuring that, all of our students, including our students with special needs, are realize a complete and balanced education within Peoria Unified. So thank you both for that. If no further no further questions, comments, I do need a motion.
I motion.
Let me just, real quick, 10.3 Curriculum and Instruction new course proposals. Ms. Pingarelli.
I motion to approve curriculum and instruction new course proposals, special education as presented.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Representative Pingarelli, a second by myself. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, board members.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hobb, Ms. Garcia, thank you. All right, moving on to our discussion items. Section 11, 11.1, update on annual bond and M&O override program. Ms. Myers, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, and community. Thank you for the opportunity to present the fiscal year 2021 maintenance and operations override and 2012 bond program update. Tonight, I will provide background information on the annual M&O override and 2012 bond program update, as well as highlight override expenditures and bond projects over the last fiscal year. At the end of the presentation, administration will be available to answer your questions. School districts are required by statute to provide an annual update on our maintenance and operations overrides and bond program expenditures, as well as remaining available funds at a public meeting between the dates of September 1st and October 31st each year. Tonight's presentation meets that requirement. Maintenance and operations expenditures are where most of the day-to-day expenditures take place for the district. This includes salaries and employer benefits, utilities, transportation costs, fuel, special education expenditures, basically operational costs that are not of a capital nature. Maintenance and operation funds cannot be used to build a new school or to pay for renovations or comprehensive repairs and maintenance for campus infrastructure. Arizona revised statutes and the legislature allows a public school district to ask its community to approve an annual M&O budget increase through an override election to support positions and programs that may not be possible with the amount of funding that's received from the state each year. So M&O is, again, positions and programs. Arizona revised statutes allow an M&O override to exceed the maintenance and operations budget up to 15% of the revenue control limit. Peoria Unified currently has a 13% override, which is supported through secondary taxes throughout the district. This 13% override was first approved by the voters within the district in November of 2015. I have shared previously that once approved, an M&O override is authorized for up to 7 years. If the school district wants to extend the override beyond the original term, that override must be reapproved. Otherwise, it begins to phase out in years 6 and 7. Unfortunately, Peoria Unified's district community did approve the continuation of our 13% override last November in 2020. The current 13% override funds assistant principals, nurses, and healthcare providers, as well as athletics, extracurricular activities, PE, arts, band, and choir, as well as gifted and reading programs throughout the district. It helps us maintain class size, provide compensation to all staff to attract and retain the best possible staff, as well as it provides funding for all-day kindergarten for our youngest learners. The state provides only a half day of funding to school districts. In fiscal year 2021, the M&O override provided $29.2 million of additional M&O funding for positions and programs throughout the district. With voter approval and a subsequent bond authorization, public school districts may sell bonds, which are purchased by investors to fund projects that have a useful life that's longer than 5 years. Examples include building improvements, HVAC, roofing, and lighting as an example, technology purchases, computers for staff and students, and school bus acquisitions. Those are examples of eligible bond expenditures. Bonds are repaid over time for a set amortization schedule. In November 2012, Peoria Unified's community approved a $180 million bond authorization for district-wide elementary and high school renovations, student transportation vehicle purchases, technology purchases, and district support facility renovations. The bond authorization is also funded through secondary property taxes from residential and commercial property throughout the district. And annual tax rates are published as part of the district's annual budget adoption each year. Fiscal year 2021 bond program expenditures totaled $5.3 million. A voter-approved bond authorization is in effect for 10 years, and bond proceeds from bond sales generally need to be expended within 3 years of the sale because they are tax-exempt bonds. The district did not have a bond sale during the last fiscal year 2021, and that is because we fully sold the authorization back in July of 2019. That was actually the last bond sale within this authorization, so there was no bond sale activity this last fiscal year, and at this time, we basically are winding down the current bond program. The district is required to track expenditures by bond pamphlet category, and bond dollars can only be expended on voter-approved bond projects. So each year when we provide this annual update, you'll see a snapshot of the tracking of expenditures that are required to be counted against the voter-approved authorization. In fiscal year 2021, $3.7 million was expended for elementary school projects and $1.6 million for high school renovations, for a total of $5.3 million of bond expenditures for the fiscal year. We have just over $10 million of remaining authorization that has carried forward into the current fiscal year 2022, and as you can see with our information reports that we provide at each board meeting, that we do provide a summary of bond activity expenditures and encumbrances to date district-wide. Fiscal year 2021 elementary school bond project expenditures included roofing, HVAC, which is technically heating and air conditioning, concrete fencing for security, parking lot renovations, and plumbing projects. In fiscal year 2021, high school projects included security system installations, fire alarm upgrades, cooling tower control plant work, athletic track renovations, and landscaping projects. And it was actually one project at Cactus High School that was actually part of a land improvement, so I should qualify that. It wasn't beautification. Preliminary bond projects in fiscal year 2022 with remaining bond sale proceeds are for priority and essential projects. So we're really, at this point, only using those remaining bond dollars for what we're considering to be an essential or priority project, examples of which would be security and safety related projects, roofing and plumbing, parking lot renovations, as well as to purchase additional school buses and student transportation vehicles this year. And so you'll see the line item related to school buses being fully expended this year, as well as the remaining bond proceeds we expect to expend by June 30th, 2022. Secondary property taxes on residential and commercial property in the Peoria Unified School District support both the 13% M&O override and bond authorization. In fiscal year 2021, the secondary tax rate was $2.9168 per $100 of limited assessed valuation. In fiscal year 2022, the secondary tax rate is 2.4396. The graph on this slide demonstrates that the district's secondary tax rate has decreased year over year for the last 5 years. This concludes the annual bond and M&O override program presentation. Administration and I are available to answer your questions at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
Yeah, I was just wondering, just out of curiosity, I mean, exactly who makes the decision on whether or not a school needs an improvement, let's say like the Centennial track or a roof at, Cactus High? Is that something that, a professional comes in to assess it, or is it just something that maintenance figures out? I mean, who makes that decision or starts asking the question, should we replace this? Is it necessary?
Thank you. President Sandoval, Mrs. Hill, members of the governing board, there are a number of contributing factors that will initiate a project. We do work with third-party consulting groups that are professionals in the area of assessing facility repairs. And we've also recently had, and I'll talk more about this in the next presentation, a full district-wide assessment of district property, as well as systems that need repair or upgrading. We also sometimes are notified by our insurance company, Valley Schools Insurance Group, and their team will come out and oftentimes identify that there is a concern that needs to be addressed, as well as, frankly, system failure. And so all of those things come into play. We do work with a group that has also assisted us with School Facilities Board renewal grants that you've seen come through the consent agenda over the last year. So again, a number of factors come into play, and security, safety are the two main focuses right now. Priority and essential projects are really the main consideration. We have a team that does periodically look at projects that are being identified and discussed to see which ones would be addressed first, and we'll continue that approach as we work through fiscal year 2022 with the remaining bond dollars.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, the funds are being distributed properly and we're not doing more than we need to. The only reason I ask is because I realized that Centennial's track did get replaced, but I'm kind of surprised it got replaced because, my daughter uses it and we've used it for years. It looks fine, but maybe there's some underlying things I don't see, but I just don't want to spend monies that are unnecessarily spent. So I just was inquiring how we come across that, but maybe there's a safety issue or something, but it appeared to be okay. So we were surprised. We noted when it was being replaced over the summer. So I was just wondering why we were replacing it, but Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Ms. Hill, we can reach out to our facilities team and add that information in a Friday report for you.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
I don't have anything at this time. Thank you.
Representative Pingarelli?
No questions.
Yeah. As always, Ms. Myers, I mean, it's a very complete and robust presentation. I really appreciate that. I don't have any questions and comments at this point, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it. All right, moving on to 11.2, Citizens Advisory Committee Discussion and Future Bond Election. This is Dr. Reynolds and Ms. Myers, but
Thank you. I'll go ahead and start the presentation. Good evening again, President Sandoval, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Reynolds, and community. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information and requirements related to Citizens Advisory Committees and bond elections. Bond and override voter-approved initiatives are part of stewardship of community resources, one of the district's 4 strategic plan perspectives to solidify and adhere to effective policies, practices, and accountability for district resources. Earlier this evening, I shared information related to the district's 2012 bond program and authorization, and the fact that that bond program is currently in its very final stage. After the program is fully expended, essential and priority school projects, school renovations, and comprehensive building and site maintenance will need to be funded from another district funding source. This will have a significant impact on the district's budget. The district previously conducted a facility assessment that was published in the spring of fiscal year 2022. At that time, and we have previously shared this with the board, $119 million of priority and essential capital projects were identified district-wide that needed to be addressed over the next 5 years. And in addition to that, there was an additional 10-year planning horizon added to that 5-year, total 15-year review that identified $301 million worth of projects district-wide. And again, some would be to address a failing roof or HVAC system. Others might be to do preventative maintenance and replacement to keep systems going and working optimally. And I will also note those costs that were identified during the study did not include new school construction or the cost of construction inflation that has been impacting both residential and commercial construction and impacts with supply chain and inflation due to current economic conditions. In addition, annual capital funding from the state of Arizona and the School Facilities Board renewal grants will not be at a level to address all of these future required construction and capital maintenance projects. School districts typically do use voter-approved bond authorizations for construction and maintenance projects. Next, I will highlight relevant policy information and then provide an update on the district's assessed valuation as well as bonding capacity. At the end of the presentation, administration, I will be available to answer your questions. There are several policies related to citizens advisory committees and recommendations related to bond and override elections. And they're listed on this slide. Specifically, policy BDE, board committees, and BDF, advisory committees, address that the board may, by majority vote, establish subcommittees, advisory committees, task forces, or ad hoc citizens study committees as necessary to address certain issues or topics as determined by the governing board and the length of time that the committees should exist and meet and then subsequently make a recommendation. In addition, policy FA, facilities development goals, priorities, and objectives, is related to the development of facilities and programs that are based on identified educational needs, and policy KCCA, community involvement in bond campaigns, is the policy that governs the board using the input from a citizens advisory committee to determine or examine educational and building needs throughout the district. The last time the governing board convened a Citizens Advisory Committee was in January of 2020. I have previously shared that bond elections are for capital expenditures, and district residents vote to approve a bond authorization for the district to sell bonds over a set period of time not to exceed the authorization amount that was approved by the voters. The voters also approve the categories within the bond authorization and expenditure amounts for each category. Again, looking back at our 2012 bond authorization, there was a category for elementary school renovations, high school, technology, student transportation, vehicles, and then facility maintenance as an example. The amount of the bond authorization is subject to the district's debt limit and bonding capacity. And just to kind of describe how that's calculated, the debt limit for Class B general obligations let me say that again, Class B general obligation bonds is based on 20% of the net full cash assessed valuation of property within the district. And over the last 10 years, as demonstrated on this bar graph, the average net full cash assessed value has increased 6.9%, with consistently increasing values over the last several years. The current net full cash assessed valuation for the district is now over $3 billion. As of June 30th, 2021, the district had $185,125,000 of outstanding bonds, with a remaining amortization timeline that ends in 2036. So we are paying off those prior bond sales, and they'll be fully extinguished in 2036. An outstanding bond timeline, again, is in conjunction with assessed valuations. And so as we pay off outstanding bonds and assessed valuations continue to increase, associated district bonding capacity will increase. And so that's what you're seeing with this second slide. The bar graph demonstrates this, and it shows basically a starting point for fiscal year 2022, again, net of currently outstanding bonds, that our bonding capacity is just over $433 million. And then again, as time goes on and payments are made and assessed values increase, that capacity will actually continue to grow. And this assumes a 5% growth over the course of time for our full cash assessed valuation. This concludes the Citizens Advisory Committee presentation. At this time, administration and I are available to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Dr. Reynolds, did you want to add to that?
No, thank you, Ms. Myers, for that information, and we look to the board for this discussion and some guidance as to next steps as our bond program, as Ms. Myers explained earlier, is coming to an end.
All right. Board members, questions, comments? Ms. Hill?
I guess my question is their interest, I presume, in having a bond election for 2022 then?
President Sandoval, members of the governing board, Dr. Reynolds, that recommendation would come forth from a Citizens Advisory Committee.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I have no more questions.
Dr. Sorensen?
I do not. Thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
This might be convoluted, but I'm just curious, in the previous presentation, it had talked about how the secondary rate had decreased over the last couple of years. Can you, and this might not be, may not make sense, but is there a way to kind of put that together with our projected bonding capacity? Does that put us in a good position in regard to a bond as a district, and then the impact on our taxpayers and our community?
President Sandoval, Mrs. Underhill, members of the governing board, the secondary tax rate is in combination the tax rate for the M&O override as well as existing bond sales that are being amortized over time. So there's a relationship with that tax rate decreasing as bonds are extinguished. And when you see that increase in assessed valuation, that's actually separate from any bond activity that the district may manage, but rather is based on the value of property increasing. But the value of property does have an impact on tax rates. So they are related, but also separate.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Underhill. Representative Pingerelli?
I have no comments at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Myers, thank you very much. There's no doubt, I mean, since before I was elected in 2016, that the district, you know, a bond has been needed. And I know throughout those years, the district continues to problem solve and be innovative in the face of many, you know, failed bond initiatives, which, you know, as you stated earlier in your previous presentation with the current bond closing, if you will, or those resources going away after this year, I believe, you know, we'll be in an adverse situation, even more so than what we were back then. You know, we're continuing to put our schools and our students in tough spots, and you know, it's just it's something that's needed. And for me, I mean, I would absolutely support, you know, the mobilizing of a bond citizens advisory committee to at least take a look at what our needs are and even answer some of the questions that the board has, even around the you know, the tax implications, et cetera. So I do appreciate your time and certainly your presentation. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 11.3, health data update. Nope.
Sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
So President Sandoval, I just had a question regarding if we were to implement or wanted to do that, do we need to put that on the next agenda, or how does, okay.
Yeah, so at the end of this, yeah, exactly right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Moss, welcome.
Thank you. President Sandoval, members of the governing board, here for your regular update on our COVID numbers. We seem to have reached a point in most of the operations of the COVID that we've kind of reached a flat spot. Things have become regular. We're moving in that process. On a 6-week trend, we're really declining. We've come down from about 300 cases per 100,000 to the 239, 234. We get some little blips every now and then that goes up and down, but in general, the trend is moving down. We continue to have cases that occur in the schools. Again, the short week of the board meeting is a little bit misleading. That 103 is a little bit misleading. It's only been 3 days as opposed to the 5 or 6 or 7 days that we report on the others. The outbreaks continue to go, and we've had the one instructional change review, which was actually yesterday, that did not run into any kind of change in the operation of the school. So I will stand for questions, or we can go back and look at some of those numbers if you'd like again.
Mr. Moss, thank you. We do have public comment, I believe. Yep, tied to this line item. So we'll listen to the public comment, and then we'll get into board questions and comments. So this public comment tied to this line item comes from Mr. Josh Gray.
Good evening again. Yeah, I'm going to talk about masks again. I just want to go on a little logic trip for a minute. All right? If you were infected with a respiratory virus, whether you knew it or not, you will be transmitting that virus through your nose and mouth. People around you can inhale those viruses from the air and possibly get infected. Things like singing, talking, coughing, shouting, all of those increase the transmission of viruses in the air. This makes the people around you more likely to get infected. If you cover your mouth when you sneeze or cough, you reduce the amount of viruses in the air. If there are fewer viruses in the air, less people will get infected. If you wear a mask while talking, shouting, coughing, or anything, then you will decrease the number of viruses that you put into the air and get less people sick. It's just logic. If you are uninfected, you can inhale respiratory viruses through the air and get infected. The more virus in the air, the more you inhale, making it more likely that you will get infected. Anything that you can do to decrease the amount of virus you inhale will decrease the likelihood of you getting infected. One way to decrease the amount of viruses you inhale is to keep your distance from anyone that could be infected, social distancing. Another way is to limit your time in the areas in which a virus is in the air, like being enclosed. Another way is by wearing a face covering. Now, no mask is capable of preventing all the virus in the air from entering your nose and mouth as you breathe. But all masks are capable of decreasing the amount of viruses that you inhale. So masking will decrease the likelihood of you getting infected. Again, this is just following the logic. COVID-19 was the leading cause of death in Arizona since the pandemic began. They just released a study. I'll send you guys an email. It just came out this week. Arizona also had the most juvenile COVID-19 deaths per capita in the United States, the most per 100,000. We were second total, only to Texas. But per 100,000, Arizona ranked number 1. So again, I have to ask the board, why are you not applying logic to protect the PUSD community from this virus that is clearly not just going to go away? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Board members, questions, comments on the health data update for Mr. Moss? Ms. Hill?
Yes, I guess I'm pleased that the numbers are kind of starting to shift downward, and natural immunity is huge. So I'm just really happy about that, and I am pleased that we are able to remain RAS-free and give people and students and staff members options. So thank you for this report.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Dr. Sorensen?
No, sir.
Ms. Underhill?
At this time, thank you.
Thank you. Representative Pingerelli?
No, thank you.
All right. Mr. Ross, thank you very much. Yeah, as always, thank you, the district, for continuing to be very intentional about prioritizing the health and wellness of our students, teachers, and all those that we serve. So really appreciate that. And as we continue to keep our foot on the pedal, it's important to continue to collaborate with our community, right, and have conversations with our sites and understanding how we can be supportive at the district level. So thank you again for that. Okay, 11.4, first read of policy section GCB. Ms. Fesley, welcome.
Good evening, President Sandoval, members of the board, Dr. Reynolds. Tonight I'm going to bring 4 different policies for a first read. The first one is policy GCB. It is professional staff, contracts, and compensation. House Bill 2268 added statutes for both charter schools and traditional public schools, requiring schools and districts to provide each employee a total compensation statement that's categorized by benefit or payment that includes specific categories. And you'll see those categories listed in red. This new language that you see in board policy shares those areas that are going to be provided in this district's total compensation statement. And you'll see some of the areas: base salary, medical benefits, and the value of any employer-paid portions of the insurance plan premiums, retirement benefit plans to include Social Security, legally required benefits, any paid leave, any other payment made to or on behalf of the employee, and any other benefit provided to the employee. What you will also see is right now that there is going to be this language that's been added, and we are currently working with our vision system alongside with our payroll department and business services, and we are in the process of building out this report. So many districts around us are also working through their information systems, their employee information systems, building out these reports. We are in communication with several districts around us and trying to take a look at what is their statement looking like. And we're also in connection with our legal counsel to ensure that we're going to be meeting the letter of the law. So with that, this is going to be, again, the area that we're going to be asking for and that we'll be moving forward with as we go into our second read.
Okay.
Any
Thank you for that. Questions, comments? Ms. Hill? No? Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Underhill? Yeah. Representative? No? I don't have any questions as well. I think it's a good thing that people will be able to fully understand what their compensation looks like for the that subsequent year. So thank you for that. All right. Moving on to 11.5, first read of policy section GDB. Ms. Vesely?
Again, thank you. President Sandoval, members of the board, this policy, policy GDB, is very similar to the previous policy. This is for our support staff compensation and contracts. It is the same language that we just previously saw. The only difference is this is board policy for support staff versus board policy for our professionals and certified staff.
Okay.
And I stand for any questions.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments? Ms. Nope. Nope. No questions from me either. Thank you, board members. All right, moving along to 11.6, first read of policy GCF.
Thank you again, President Sandoval, members of the board. Policy GCF is dealing with professional staff hiring. And again, we're looking at House Bill 2023. Before employing a certificated or non-certificated person, school districts and/or charter schools are required to conduct a search of the educator information system that is maintained by the Arizona Department of Education on prospective employment and those people that we're looking to possibly hire. School districts and charter schools are prohibited from employing a person in a position that requires a valid fingerprint clearance card, either a certificated person whose certificate has been suspended, surrendered, or revoked and not subsequently reinstated, or a non-certificated person who has been prohibited from employment at a school district or charter school. So I think that's the piece that's going to be key as we continue to move forward in looking at our board policies. This is a practice that we have done already for our professional staff. Upon hiring, we do have access to what we call the teacher input application system and other systems through ADE, where we can actually go in and see if a current employer, or excuse me, a current employee or a prospective employee has a current and valid certification as well as a fingerprint card. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Vesely. Ms. Hill? Dr. Sorensen? Ms. Underhill?
No question. It just seems, I mean, we always request that anyway, correct? So,
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
That is something we always check. It's just now in law.
Okay. Thank you.
Representative, okay. No questions from me either. Moving on to 11.7, first read of policy GDF.
Thank you once again, President Sandoval, members of the board. Policy GDF is, again, very similar to the previous policy. This is policy dealing specifically on the hiring of our support staff. So it is the same language. And here for this area, what I wanted to focus in on is what the definition of a non-certificated person is according to the Department of Education. That is an employee of a school district or charter school who does not possess an Arizona educator certificate and is required or allowed to provide services directly to pupils without being supervised by a certificated employee. So this is going to be a new area for school districts. It's easy for us to go into the educator information system through the Department of Education and find teacher certificates. We are now going to be required to look at those support staff who may have some kind of action against them which would prohibit them from being able to work in school districts. Department of Education is currently working on how we're going to be able to look individuals up in their system, and we are hoping to get more information at our ASPA conference, which is coming up in a few weeks, and hopefully that we'll be able to bring some more information back to you. So I think the area for us is the new piece will be the support staff and how we're going to be able to find or locate those people through the State Department of Education. A couple of other areas, some examples that would qualify that we would have to look up would be instructional assistants and coaches. Those are going to be the two areas I think that we will focus in on. Non-certificated persons that will not fall under this law would be transportation employees, food service employees, maintenance workers, or any employee that's not required to possess a fingerprint clearance card. So again, we're looking at those support staff that are directly relating and working alongside our certificated personnel and providing some kind of a service to our students, whether they are in conjunction with that certified staff member, or they may be working in the back of the room for a few minutes by themselves. So those are the two areas that we'll be working on. And I stand for any questions.
All right, thank you for that. Ms. Hill? Dr. Sorensen? No. Representative Figueroa? No. No questions from me either. Ms. Vesely, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 12, our informational reports. 12.1, report on upcoming meetings and events. Ms.
We don't
Sarah?
have a report this evening.
Oh, we're good, okay. 12.2, legislative, state, and local updates. Ms. Myers?
Thank you, President Sandoval, members of the board. I do not have a report this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. All right, moving on to our budget, facilities, planning, and construction report. This and the subsequent reports are on our website for your viewing at your convenience. 12.4, district budget report for the month of July 2021. 12.5, district budget report for the month of August 2021, again, on our website. 12.6, district enrollment reports for the month of September 2021, also on our website. All right, section 13, other business. 13.1, board member opportunity to readdress agenda items. Board members, any item that you would like to readdress this evening? Ms. Hill?
No, thank you.
All right, Dr. Sorensen? Yep, Ms. Hill? Nope, I don't either, thank you. 13.2, request for agenda items for future governing board meetings. Ms. Hill?
None at this time, thank you.
Okay, Dr. Sorensen? Yep. Ms. Underhill?
Yeah, I would like to put on an agenda item about action in regard to convening the Community Advisory Committee on the future bond election.
I'll second that. Ms. Contra, are you clear on that request?
Yes, sir, I am. Thank you.
Okay, you got it. Representative Pingarelli, any items that you would like to add to a future governing board meeting?
I have two.
Okay.
Discussion on how parental opt-out form instruction is being administered, procedure for parental notification, and a clear understanding of accountability when opt-out is not being followed.
Is that one?
That's one.
Ms. Contra, do you want to, we can pause for a sec just to get clarity?
I have it, sir. Thank you.
Yep, and actually, are you done with the first one?
The first one I'm done with.
All right, so we do need a second.
I will second.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ms. O. Okay.
Second one, how much dues are we paying to the National School Boards Association and Arizona School Boards Association? And I want to have a discussion on continuing or not continuing with the National School Boards Association and the Arizona School Boards Association.
I will second.
Ms. Contra, any questions on the second request?
No, thank you, President Sandoval. I have it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Representative Pingarelli. All right. If no other requests, on to 14.1. I do need a motion to adjourn this meeting at, looks like 7:57 p.m.
I move to adjourn the meeting at 7:57 p.m.
I will second.
Ms. Contra, we have a motion by Ms. Underhill and a second by Ms. Hill. Board members, please cast your votes. Motion passes 5 yeas to 0. Thank you, board members. Thank you, everybody in the audience, parents, families, teachers, cabinet, for the evening. Really appreciate your time.